Welcome back to Talk Jamaica here on Talk Jamaica Radio. It's now time for the discussion segment. Recently, Leader of Government Business in the House of Representatives and Minister of Science, Technology, Energy and Mining, Philip Caldwell, stated that he will find time this year to decriminalize possession of small amounts of marijuana. The lobbyists have expressed optimism with this announcement. However, there are others who are not very comfortable with this idea. Should marijuana be decriminalized? What are the implications? What are the benefits? Joining us today to discuss this issue, we have Attorney at Law Kenyatta Powell, Northwest St. Anne MP Dr. Dayton Campbell, and we're also to be joined by a director of the Ganja Law Reform Coalition, Delano Seawright. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Let me start with you, Kenyatta, and I wanted to paint a picture for our listeners. What exactly do we mean when we say decriminalization of marijuana?
Okay, so what we would have to do is that we would have to start with the question of what the law actually provides for at the moment. And what the law provides for is that the Dangerous Drugs Act provides essentially that production, distribution, and usage of ganja, marijuana, is a criminal offense in Jamaica. So that would have to be our starting point. What does current law provide for? And so it is absolutely a criminal offense. For instance, if I could go to the section of the Act dealing with ganja, because there's actually a heading in there that deals with ganja. It says that. One moment with this. Give me a moment.
Yes.
It says that every person, the 17C, and this is the Dangerous Drugs Act, every person who has in his possession any ganja shall be guilty of an offense, and then the Act lists circumstances under which a person can be convicted and before which courts. 7B of the Act deals with production and distribution, etc. And so the offense of producing and distributing ganja and using it for yourself varies from a custodial sentence to a fine. The implications now for what decriminalization would be, it's a fairly simple process. What could happen is that Parliament could pass an amendment to the Dangerous Drugs Act, repealing those sections of the Act specifically referencing ganja. And so that if that is what Minister Caldwell has been suggesting, then essentially that is what decriminalization would be. Enacting new statutes to remove, to make the possession, distribution, production of ganja, to remove the distinction of that being a criminal offense. My own suspicion is that what the minister is talking about is that what they're going to do is to make possession of small quantities of the drug and usage of small quantities of the drug no longer a criminal offense. Because there might be some other implications for questions about production and distribution. So I think what they might do is that they might attack possession as a first step. And frankly, if I was doing it, that's the way I would go about it.
All right. Let me bring Dr. Dayton Campbell in the discussion, because I believe you have an issue, Dr. Campbell. But if you could tell us, do you think the decriminalization of marijuana is the best option?
Well, I do believe that there are tremendous benefits to be had from decriminalizing it for medicinal purposes. I do believe, however, that we should proceed with caution when it comes to the decriminalization for personal use. The reason being is that even though it has been heralded in recent times as a panacea to all of our troubles, I do believe that there are tremendous benefits, but at the same time, that is not supposed to quite a bit of harmful from the youth, especially on the developing brain. And I do believe that there is some amount of consensus from all, those who are for and those who are against, that it does cause damage to the developing brain. As such, I think it should be something that is dealt with in stages. The fact of the matter is that if you're extracting the beneficial components to produce your medical items, then I don't think any well-thinking Jamaican will disagree with that. And to be frank, we've been a leader in that field because we do have Tenasol and Asmasol that was developed by Prof. West et al. From way back. And those are things that I as a physician would prescribe. But I have a little bit of concern when it comes down to the decriminalization for personal use. I'm most certainly not saying that youngsters should necessarily end up with a criminal record, but I do believe that there was a provision that Senator Knight, back when he was minister in 1998-99, had put in place where persons who were caught in possession were to go through the drug court and they were to be given a warning for the first offense, and the second one that they would go through rehab. I can't help but take the stance that there needs to be some form of rehabilitation done, and that persons cannot just be allowed to have this quantity with them, because we never know what will be the harmful effect for one person, Mm-hmm. It may be one spliff that could do the damage to one individual, and we have to remember that smoking kills, and the direction that we're trying to take is to advise persons against smoking. And when you're smoking, you can't tell the dosage because it depends on the inhalation, how long you hold it for, how much of it is absorbed. So it's not a controlled dose that will be administered if somebody is smoking. So from a public health concern as well, I don't support smoking of anything.
But Dr. Campbell, if I may jump in at this point, you see, the thing is that I would say, mostly in agreement with some of the things you said a while ago. It's just that I don't know that in order for us to address the public health concerns that you will have with issues of people under a certain age getting access to ganja, etc., I don't know that we need to have a criminal offense, the possession of ganja, in order to address those public health concerns.
The reason for saying that is because you think that the criminal of getting a criminal record is something that is harsh. No, what?
Yes, Dr. Campbell.
It serves as a deterrent. That's what it does, It serves as a deterrent for youngsters to know that if you're caught with this, you might end up getting a record. Therefore, you're trying to get them to stay away from it. And the fact of the matter is that if you look at the other substances that are used and abused, that are legal, the usage of that, as recorded, is higher.
So then, by your logic, we should go ahead and make alcohol consumption a criminal offense then, because you see, I don't frankly understand, given what you have mentioned just now about your public health concerns, Dr. Campbell. I don't understand why other addictive substances are not similarly subject to criminal sanctions. It does strike me as a little.
Are you therefore suggesting that if I can correct all of the problems at once, that I shouldn't correct any? Or
No, that's not. No. Dr. Campbell.
That we should allow another?
No. I'm not suggesting that for a moment. There are several studies which have suggested, for instance, that alcohol consumption poses a greater public health and public safety concern for the state than marijuana consumption. And so that if you say to me, if anybody says to me that in order to mitigate these public health and public safety concerns, marijuana must be legal, that person should be made to explain to me why the consumption of alcohol should similarly be illegal.
Well, the fact of the matter is that, I go back to the point again, that if you have two legal intoxicants, it does not pave the way to introduce a third. It doesn't. You understand? Because if we are all to agree that alcohol and tobacco has harmful effects, and we're saying that marijuana has harmful effects, and because those are legal, then why not let marijuana be legal? I can't agree with that. And you have to remember that I was one of the most vocal persons in support of the ban against tobacco. It's a consistent stance that I've taken. What my training is, and based on what I know that these substances can be. And I'm saying that I am allowing for that provision to be in place, where somebody, if they go through the provision of the drug code, will be let off the first time with a warning, and the second time for them to go through rehab. What we can't do is to ignore the statistics and the warning of those persons who are involved in the treatment of persons who are addicted to marijuana and persons who are experiencing the harmful effects. Persons like Dr. Winston Delahaye from the unit of the university.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Dr. Campbell.
Difficulty. Hello. Am I being
Yes, Kenyatta. We're hearing you, Kenyatta. Go ahead, Dr. Campbell.
Right. I'm saying what we can't do is to ignore what the harmful effects are, and the fact is that I believe that to give them a record right off the bat is harsh, and the punishment may not match the crime. Therefore, I'm saying use the provision that is there to give them a warning the first time, and the second time to allow them to go through rehab. If you speak to persons like Dr. Winston Delahaye, who is head of the detox unit at the University of the West Indies, they can be furnished with the statistics as to what is the reality with our young persons who are using, misusing, and abusing marijuana.
Right. All right. We just lost Kenya, so we're trying to reconnect him. I just want to tell our listeners also that we should have been joined by Delana Steve Wright, but for some reason we're not able to get him via his cell phone. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to try and reconnect with Kenyatta. Can you hold the line for us, please, Dr. Campbell?
Sure.
All right. We're going to take a break, listeners, and we will be right back.
Do you support criminal gangs?
No, man.
No?
You're mad.
Do you have illegal cable service at home?
Yeah.
Yes. No?
Yeah.
Well, think about this. Running illegal cable service is one way criminal gangs finance their crimes.
If you have illegal cable service, you could be supporting crime right now.
Don't buy illegal cable service. Please, get legit. A message from the Broadcasting Commission, your partner for a new day.
Welcome back to Talk Jamaica right here on Talk Jamaica Radio. In case you're just joining us, we're discussing the decriminalization of marijuana here in Jamaica, and that's a hot button topic, especially because the leader of government business in the House of Parliament just recently announced that they should decriminalize marijuana in small quantities before the end of the year. We still have with us MP Dr. Dayton Campbell, and we are now rejoined by Attorney at Law Kenyatta Powell. We should have been joined by Delana Seawright, however, we are unable to get in contact with him. Let me go back to you, Kenyatta. I'm going to ask you this question. Mm-hmm. What do you think are, and I realize how you have started your discussion, so I wanted to tell us what are really the benefits of us decriminalizing marijuana here in Jamaica. And I wanted to start from a legal perspective in terms of the courts.
Yes, okay. I start by asking myself the question, what should our courts be concerning themselves with, especially in the context of a nation with limited resources, and I'm sure Dr. Campbell would appreciate this being involved as he is with government. But what should we be doing with the limited resources that we have, especially in relation to the courts? Now, every Jamaican lawyer will tell you that we have a serious backlog of cases in the courts, and a lot of that backlog will be criminal cases. So I ask myself, for instance, when I visit the courts, the criminal courts in Halfway Tree, right? And there are courtrooms dedicated, a magistrate is sitting there handing down a fine of 100 Jamaican dollars, right? When there are preliminary inquiries in relation to murder trials that can't happen because of the backlog, because we don't have enough magistrates, because we don't have enough courtrooms. So I ask myself, do we really need to use the courts in this way in order to get the benefits-free public health and public safety that Dr. Dayton Campbell was talking about just now? And my answer to that question is no. So what we should do is to take the burden of these cases off the courts by decriminalizing the possession of certain quantities of the drug. I think it will free up.
No, but is it that you basically, Kenyatta, is trying to find an easier way to solve an ailing court system? Because right there and then, I think that one of the issues with the court, we need a justice reform. So is it a case that, is it an issue that we're really not handling our courts in the proper way, but you are now trying to find a backdoor way to ease the burdens within the court?
I wouldn't say it's a backdoor way, and justice reform is very important. But in other countries where they have looked at justice reform, a component of the review has been to say, what legal rules do we have, especially criminal rules do we have, that we don't actually need, right? Should the state, and these are questions that I don't think philosophically that we ask ourselves too often in Jamaica, should the state be involved in prohibiting us or attempting to prohibit us from doing certain things? I have asked that question, and my answer to that question is that there are some things that, properly speaking, I believe that the state really ought not to be so concerned about preventing us from doing certain things. So if a man wants to smoke a split, to be quite frank, I don't see that should attract a criminal sanction. And I think it is worth it to attract a criminal sanction in a system where he must now go before a magistrate to be handed a $100 fine or whatever the fine is these days, in the context where we have a court system that is already so overburdened. So even before we get to questions of could court go longer, should we have night court, Can we extend the time that the courts sit? Do we need new magistrates and all of that? I think that this is legitimately one of the things that we could look at. Are there things the courts deal with now that really they ought not to be dealing with?
Kenyatta, I want to put something to you because I hear you talking about the limited resources, and then Dr. Dayton Campbell mentioned about the statistics from Dr. Delahaye. Last week we had a discussion on this program on mental health and mental issues, and we had Dr. Delahaye on this program, and he was concerned that with all the issues that have to do with mental health, with all the limited resources that we have to deal with in terms of mental health, do you think we really need to legalize another substance to contribute to that, to our mental health issues?
What I would say in response to that is that the approach we have taken, recriminalize in reference to the law, the approach has been to criminalize the thing, right? I would say that approach really has not worked to address issues we're having with mental health. So for me, it boils down to we have been doing the thing this way for a while, and it has not worked. So maybe the time has come for us now to review how we approach these things. If we take mental health issues, for instance, there is a stigma in this country, right? That's attached to the issue of mental illness. The way we speak about people who, in Jamaican parlance, we would say are mad. Right,
Mm-hmm.
and for that I would argue contributes to a lot of the problems we're having, mental health issues. I think now that is a place to start another attack. Right. So yes, we can decriminalize marijuana. Right. I'm skeptical, and I would say that I'm skeptical of the idea that more people than usual and a lot of Jamaicans actually use marijuana for various reasons. I am skeptical that more. I'm seriously skeptical that if we should decriminalize, that more people than a significant number more than people than who normally would smoke or use ganja to do X or Y would start smoking or using it to do X or Y. I am unconvinced that is a serious thing to be concerned about. So what I would say is that what we get is that we get some relief on the court system, right? And we also get frankly, we remove completely the threat of somebody getting a criminal record. And I know Dr. Campbell talks about a first warning or counseling or rehabilitation. But what position really is the court in to determine if a person who is caught with a spliff really needs to go counseling? Not every man with a spliff is addicted to ganja. So I think we should take those things away, take those questions away from the court.
Hold just a second. I didn't say that they should go for counseling, I said that they should go for rehab, because this conversation started becoming heated in Jamaica when Sanjay Gupta spoke of the benefits of marijuana. That's when it caught on again. Now, in that presentation, he made mention that roughly about 10% of those who use it become addicted to it. So there's evidence to point to the fact that it is an addictive substance. But there are several questions that I have coming out of the points that were raised just now. The first one is that, are we stating that the criminal record currently doesn't serve as a deterrent? Because in order for somebody to moot an argument to say that there won't be increase in use, it is saying that currently the criminal record is not serving serving as a deterrent. Because if it is, then it simply means that if you take it away, that more persons will use. So if you're saying to me that you're not going to get increased usage, you're essentially saying that currently the criminal record is not, or the threat of getting a criminal record is not serving as a deterrent where usage is concerned.
I would definitely agree with that. And if you go to Halfway and the day escapes me and see the number of Jamaicans who are before the criminal court in the corporate area for possession of a spliff here or a spliff there, it seems pretty obvious to me that the only thing that the criminal record serves to do is to actually hurt people in the long run, but it doesn't actually deter the usage. It doesn't actually.
There's nothing scientific behind what you're putting forward now. It's really an opinionated statement.
Of course, it's not opinionated. I
say it because I know several youngsters who don't smoke marijuana currently because they're afraid of that. Right? That's the sole reason why they don't. Because they're afraid of being caught and they're afraid of getting a criminal record.
Yes, but Dr. Campbell. But Dr. Campbell, I didn't say that no person refrains from smoking marijuana because they're afraid of the criminal. What I question is Dr. Campbell. What I question is the general deterrent effect.
So, but if you're saying, hold on, let's take it bit by bit. If you're saying that it is a deterrent, if you remove a deterrent, you're going to get increased usage.
Dr. Campbell, we are talking in general terms.
No,
right? So I agree. Yeah, man, we're talking in general terms. So I agree with you that there must be people out there who don't smoke because they're afraid of getting a criminal record, right? So I don't say no. Right? What I'm saying to you is that I am unsure that the criminal record has a general deterrent effect, right? In that if you could look across the board and you could say an appreciable statistical number of persons won't smoke because they're afraid of the criminal deterrent, I am questioning the wisdom of that proposition. And what I would say is that it is not borne out from my own experience in the court because Jamaicans know that ganja is illegal.
No, but hold on now. But a certain percentage, even though they know, right, they will still go ahead. But you will have a percentage that because they know, they won't go ahead. And if we were to look at it and look at the number of persons that uses tobacco and alcohol as related in comparison to marijuana, you realize that it is a higher percentage. Now, an argument can be made that the percentage is higher because that is easily accessible and it is legal, right? But let us not belabor the point. The second question that I have is, if it is that we're saying that the backlog in the courts and all of these things, why not just after the legalization then, right? Because at the end of the day, even if you decriminalize, it will be on a certain amount. That's one. And two, there will still have to be some penalty in place, whether it's a fine or whatever. Similar to a traffic ticket, whatever it is, which if they don't pay, they're still going to have to end up in some court presenting themselves as to why they didn't pay.
Yes,
right?
so which is why my ideal first step, right, and I think I said this at the beginning, is that I don't know that this is where the government of Jamaica will go, but my ideal first step is for full decriminalization, right? So that there's an important enough difference between decriminalization, whether you're talking about partial decriminalization or full decriminalization. There's a distinct difference between decriminalization and legalization. So my first step would be for full decriminalization, right? With later on maybe some steps to address what we in the legal fraternity would refer to as legalization, bringing the thing under certain rules and tax measures, those kinds of issues. But what we're talking about now, I would say, is that whether there should be a criminal sanction attached to using ganja. And I think the government is going to do piecemeal because this is the way government operates in Jamaica. No offense, Dr. Campbell. But my first step is to go for full decriminalization, remove all these references to amounts, and to relieve the court almost immediately of these cases. Right? So you no longer have to deal with any issue related to marijuana possession. So that's what I would do.
All right.
Okay. And I have a third question that was coming out of what was said earlier.
Go on.
And in relation to the use of our scarce resources. And whenever you have scarcity, you have to make choices, yes?
Yeah, man.
And if it is that we're saying that this is placing a burden on the legal sector because of the limited resources, let us look at the other hand, and I'm not sure if we have the statistics. I certainly don't. To look at dealing with one case in the courts as opposed to dealing with one mental case in the hospitals. As in, what is the comparison between the spending? Because you will recall that in last year, the Minister of Youth and Culture made the public statement that 1/3 of our Jamaican population suffers from a mental illness. 1/3, right? I'm sure Dr. Delahaye would have pointed you to statistics to support that when you have a mental illness already on board and you use any substance, that it is heightened and you have to develop other illnesses. Right? Now, what will be the effect of that on those category of persons who suffer? A significant percentage, by the way, 1/3 is a significant percentage of the population. What will be the implications on that sector of the population in relation to them developing illnesses which will further necessitate them getting treatment?
It's not an answer myself, and I think this discussion benefits from Dr. Delahaye's contribution. Except though that to go back to Dr. Sanjay Gupta and some of the things he actually had to say about his experiences with marijuana. There is I gather scholarship out there to suggest, right? And I pretend not to be an expert, to suggest that these concerns might be, if not a bit overblown and purposely so, that they are misplaced. In that decriminalization is going to result in an immediate epidemic of mentally ill people becoming worse, right? So I don't know, I will admit to it, I don't know that is, I don't know the statistics myself, I don't know that is something to worry ourselves about. But if we should, let's assume that we should. I think our issues with mental health in this country goes, and a lot of things go to how we approach a problem, right? What do we do? I think our first step too often in this country is to stigmatize, right? So that it's the same thing with mental health, and it's the same thing with other social issues, right? So that is something that I would say that as a step that the government should have been, something that the government should have been addressing from yesterday, right? That we now start looking at our mental health system, right? How we treat people. How are we going to change societal values in relation to a man who is a little issue with anxiety or coping or etc., those kinds of things, right? So I would say that the barriers not insurmountable, right? It's just that we haven't addressed these problems. And I would say, to me, where, in my opinion, the benefits of decriminalization outweigh the drawbacks. You free up more of our magistrates to deal with what I would suggest are more serious criminal offences. So you could go a little way in getting rid of the backlog. And I think that the benefit of having fewer people with a criminal record over something as minor as a split, right, will go a long way in this country too.
No, so, inherent in a lot that has been said thus far, is an assumption that the reason for the backlog is almost solely based on the fact that persons are presented. But we have to look at what are the other issues contributing to the backlog. We have to look at the other issue of reform. You understand? Because listening to this conversation, some innocent listener out there may be convinced that the reason for the backlog is because we have persons presenting who were caught with a split. And we need to dispel that because it's not necessarily so. It's contributing to it.
Yeah, but that's what I said in Dr. Campbell.
No, but I'm saying we need to look at it in its totality. Because other more serious and pressing factors that contribute to the backlog.
Yeah, Dr. Campbell, that's what I actually said that one of the things I said in there, I said is that it's contributing to the backlog. There are other things you can do, just system reform, right? But this is one of the things you can do also. I agree with you. It's not causing, by itself it's not causing the backlog, but it's definitely adding to the problem. So why not fix it?
All right. I want to come back to the medical aspect of things. And Dr. Campbell, you are a medical doctor. Can you give us an idea, if you will, of the implication of persistent use of marijuana and what effects that would have on our health system?
The thing is that whenever I speak on the effects of it, I normally say to persons that they are good and they are bad, right? So you have the cannabinoids and you have good ones and you have the ones that cause harm. So it can be used to treat increased pressure, intraocular pressure, what we call glaucoma. It can be used to treat asthma. It can be used to treat pain, chronic pain, neuropathic pain. There's research coming out of Spain that it may even be able to assist in the management of some cancers. So you have others looking at post-traumatic stress disorder that it may be able to treat. So it does provide a wonderful opportunity for medical industry, especially health tourism, and that's the reason why I support it for medicinal use. On the other hand, if you're going to use the plant and not extract the beneficial components, but you're using the thing in the entire plant, where you're inhaling or you're accessing both the good and the bad, then you have to now contend with those adverse effects that it will cause, right? And the fact is that one, you have increase in your respiratory illnesses. And you look at the harmful effects of smoking in general, because when it is used in that form, it's generally either smoke or it is ingested. Yes? Now, if you're looking at the harmful effects of smoking and that what it does, there are some persons who say that there are more charcoals, more carcinogens, cancer-causing agents within that smoke than you find in tobacco smoke. Yes? And we know that tobacco is responsible for 4 of every 10 deaths within the Caribbean. Significant number. All right? And evidence as well to point to increase in heart rate, to the psychoactive component of it, causing the hallucination, the change in perception in general, and it pretty much sedates persons in effect. So there are a lot of harmful effects. The psychoactive effects are the main one. The possibility of the increased hydrocarbons or the carcinogens is another significant one, and then all the sequelae that follows from smoking.
Okay, but Dr. Campbell, don't you think that this move will, if decriminalized, will enhance the country's economic development?
No, but why can't we do it for medicinal purposes? That's what I'm saying. If we do it for medicinal purposes, and we have all of these new products that we are now manufacturing, and we have this boom in health tourism where we have persons coming in to access these new wonderful drugs that would have been developed from marijuana, it will certainly cause growth in our economy. But so I'm not against that, to be
Dr. Campbell. Dr. Campbell. The funny thing is about what you just said is that at the top of the show, you mentioned Canasol and Asmasol and some other drugs distilled from marijuana, and that was done right here in Jamaica. Yes. But because current law, as it stands in Jamaica right now, going back to the Dangerous Drugs Act, already allows for that kind of research, those kinds of medical usages and applications to happen, right? The Dangerous Drugs Act already provides for an application process to the Ministry of Health, and if memory serves, the Chief Medical Officer for corporations and corporations mostly, for them to get a license that could actually allow them to work with marijuana in the way that you are suggesting. So we already have a licensing regime within the very Dangerous Drugs Act itself that allows for this kind of research to take place. So existing law already provides for that, which is why it's a little bit of a head scratcher for me when I hear people talking about decriminalizing for medical purposes, because if the medical purposes we're talking about is for R&D, for your research and development into using, as you would say, the good ingredients, the good substances present in ganja to make medicine, existing law already provides for that to happen.
No, man, remember that we haven't gone along the full way, though, where we don't have a full industry. And remember that we also haven't looked at the health tourism component. And remember as well that we haven't looked at the licensing component for production where it can be sold into the medical industry both locally and internationally. So it is not as narrow as that. It is more, it's a wider concept than that is being proposed. But the reason for the differentiation is because persons like myself want to make the point very clear that we're not promoting nor are we sanctioning the use of it by persons just for personal use. Because those youngsters that you have currently on the corner just smoking, nobody prescribed it to them. Nobody told them what dose to take. Nobody told them what route to take. Nobody told them what were the adverse effects. Nobody told them what would be a toxic dose. And if there's a toxic dose, nobody told them what they were to do. As in, what is the antidote? They haven't been told. So that's what we want to make clear, right? And we have to understand, as a member of parliament, I have a tremendous problem trying to reach out to these persons who are using it and are unproductive, and they don't seem to want to add to any production within the country. And so they're battling, come up with different things to try and assist these persons.
And you're blaming marijuana. Are you blaming marijuana?
It's a contributing factor. No, it's not the sole reason, but it is a contributing factor.
Well, Dr. Campbell,
definitely not the only factor.
Well, Dr. Campbell, I doubt that marijuana usage is even a contributing factor. The issues we have, hold on, Dr. Campbell, let me finish. In the issues we have in this country with the youth not producing, with there not being sufficient opportunities out there. Because what I would say, Dr. Campbell, is that you and your cohort have not created for us, the Jamaican people, an economy, a justice system, a country that is healthy enough that people can find alternatives to these things. So that I find it a little rich, frankly, when I hear all of this talk coming from politicians like yourself, and you are a politician, about non-production and smoking ganja and whatnot. It seems that it strikes me a little bit as if I'm trying to pass the book. I suppose that's my own bias.
Let us contextualize what I'm saying. Since 1972, the average per capita income in Jamaica has not changed. So I am by no means, right, trying to remove the government from being blamed. Successive administration. I'm not doing that. You understand? What I'm saying, and even though I'm a newcomer to politics, I'm taking my share of the blame. That's more that needs to be done, right? So I'm not for a second trying to draw something over my eyes to the reality of the situation. But I am stating in no uncertain terms that the usage of marijuana is a significant contributing factor. You can look at the studies coming out of the DETA team. You can look at the number of youngsters in schools, talk to the National Council on Drug Abuse, and you can see the number of youngsters who are not performing in school, who have problems with conflict resolution, who are seen, and when they are assessed, they have been using it. I was on a panel at the university recently, last month, and it was reported 13 university students presented to the emergency unit of the University of the West University Hospital for cardiac attack, heart-related injuries, solely based on the use of marijuana. When they were checked, they had no other substance. These are youngsters in their 20s. We turn a blind eye to the harmful effects of marijuana. That's the point I'm making. So I'm not excluding anybody from blame. And I'm taking my fair share of the blame. And that is the reason why I've gone out to do my educational program, because I believe that's where we have to start. By educating our people and educating them in keeping with our development plan. So when we educate them, they can also find jobs and they can contribute. So yes, that is a part of it, and that is the major part of it. But we certainly cannot say that marijuana is not a contributing factor.
Okay, gentlemen, we're almost up on a break. But before we go to that break, I want to ask you, Kenyatta, if you will, should we treat or should marijuana be viewed as how cigarette is viewed under the Jamaican law?
Should it be viewed in the same way?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, what would happen is that, as I would say, my preferred first step is to go to full decriminalization, and in that effect, in that way, it would be treated in the same way as any other intoxicant or mind-altering agent, which is now legal, which would be tobacco and their alcohol, right? What I would say, is that I do agree with Dr. Campbell. That, for instance, the regulations public smoking, the ones promulgated last year, that if you go ahead and decriminalize marijuana in the way I'm suggesting, I think just on a plain reading of those regulations, they would apply also to the smoking of marijuana. And so that the prohibitions that we now have via those regulations about smoking in public would also apply, right? So that I'm not for a moment suggesting that everybody should be out on the road lighting up as they see fit. What I am suggesting, and I want to be very clear about this, is that I think that marijuana, ganja, has been blamed for so many things, so many of the ills of society. And I think it's convenient. I know Dr. Campbell has said that he accepts his share of the blame, but he quoted a statistic a while ago, and he beat me about the stagnation in the Jamaican economy since 1972. Right? I am 29 years old, born in 1984. And so I grew up in this economy. So I have seen the stagnation, right? What I'm saying is that on top of all of that, I am deeply uncomfortable with sending these young people, as Dr. David Campbell said, on the corner smoking, right? I am uncomfortable with giving these young people a criminal record on top of the fact that we haven't provided them with a decent enough education system, right? And that the economy has been on life support since 1972. So on top of all of that, I am uncomfortable with a criminal burden being there also. That I would suggest is triple punishment.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to hold the line. We're going to take our final break in this segment and come right back with you.
For all medical emergencies, health and wellness support, visit Not All Accident Emergency Unit and Ambulance Service. Open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Mondays to Saturdays and 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays. Call us at 537-8764, email validonservices@gmail.com, or visit us at 14 Old Hope Road, Kingston. Not All Accident Emergency Unit and Ambulance Service, adding value to the services we provide.
I was really excited to be Olympic champion. At 21, I was like, this little girl, she going to an Olympic champion. And then that started something new inside of me. That started something that says, oh well, if I put my mind to something and I believe in myself, then anything is possible. Nobody chooses the situation in which we're born. It happens and we come. But what we choose to do with our lives is very important. Because you're from an inner city, it doesn't mean that you are the inner city. I had the support of my mother to think beyond. You can live up yourself, basically, and try to be a better individual before you take on the responsibility of a partner. It makes you an independent woman. Hi, my name is Shelly Ann Fraser Price. Love, protect, respect, live up. Live up.
Live up, shout, live up, shout, live up.
All right, welcome back to Talk Jamaica on Talk Jamaica Radio, streaming live on blogtalkradio.com/Talk Jamaica. In case you're just joining us, we are discussing the announcement made by the Minister of Mining, Energy and Science and Technology about the decriminalization of marijuana in Jamaica, or the hope that the government will decriminalize it by the end of this year. And we're joined on the program by Attorney at Law Kenyatta Powell and also Western St. Anne Member of Parliament Dayton Campbell. Just to advise our listener that my co-host Sanjay Lewis is having some technical difficulties, so until then I'm just going to go along with what we have until we're able to connect with him. Kenyatta.
Can I just clarify something before we go along, though?
Sure.
A few things. One, it is actually Northwestern Center. I'm not quite sure if that's what was said. Yes.
Okay.
Two, if marijuana is decriminalized, we'd have to amend the regulations that were passed last year in order for it to cover it. Because the regulation that was passed is the tobacco control regulation. It was specific.
Yes. Yeah. We'd have to amend them.
So it would have to be amended. And the third thing is that all of us are in agreement that a criminal record is something that is harsh. I am not suggesting for a second that they should have a criminal record. I'm merely suggesting that there's an internet route that we can take for them to be treated with. True, them getting a warning the first time, and the second time for them to go to rehab, because we have to take the adverse effects seriously. We can't just see you don't have a record and you can just allow them to go there and continue doing it, because in the long run it is affecting a tremendous amount of them. And we speak of not creating the environment. And Attorney Powell said that he was born in 84. I was born in 83. We're not that far apart. I grew up under the same economic conditions as he did, right? But the truth of the matter is there are lots of persons who when I was in school, I couldn't carry a candle to them academically. And they started using this substance, and it affected them tremendously. And today, they are nowhere. So we have to also cater for that step, Yes, the government needs to do more. I don't think anybody will argue with that. right? But the fact of the matter is that some of these youngsters are in the position that they are because they went ahead and they abused this substance.
All right. Kenyatta, from an international perspective, what effect then, can you say what effect will decriminalization have for Jamaica as relating to the U.S. anti-drug certification?
It's a couple of different things. The United States does have some legislation, and it's not just in relation to dangerous drugs. We just think about FATCA, for instance. But there's statutes in the United States relating to a number of things where you would have to get a certain certification. But what I would say is that I would remove the United States from the equation for a second. And what I would say is that in general, Jamaica has certain obligations in international law.
Right.
The name of the treaty escapes me at the moment. The name of the treaty escapes me at the moment. So sorry for that. Production, manufacture, but especially export. So the cross-border movement of certain controlled substances. All right. I am not for a moment suggesting violating any of those treaty obligations, because with international law, obligations are essentially what we would call in legal theory horizontal. There is no vertical application. In that there is no international police to force the subject of international law, the sovereign state, to act a certain way. But certainly if you're dealing with a country like Jamaica, a small, economically weak, certainly militarily weak nation, we can't afford to even be seen to be violating our international law obligations, and therefore consequences will flow. But I think that what we're discussing now, removing the criminal sanctions for possession here in Jamaica by Jamaicans, is, I think, fine where our international obligations are concerned. Because if it's the United States, for instance, those states which have actually decriminalized, Colorado and maybe Washington, who have decriminalized the recreational use of marijuana, they still operate in a federation where it is still the use, distribution of these substances still illegal at the federal level, right? So that you can't export the ganja, though it's legal now in Colorado. You can export it beyond the borders of Colorado, because that would still constitute a federal offense. So I think that there are ways to do this thing without running afoul of our international obligations. And that is chiefly what I would be concerned about as a lawyer. Can we do this while at the same time fulfilling our international obligations? And I think we can.
All right. We're almost at the end of the discussion, gentlemen, and I want to throw the last question to both of you. As a way going forward, what do you think would be the suggestion for our next move? I mean, the announcement has been made. What is the next move? Anyone can take that. You can take that, Dr. Campbell. What would be the next move?
Go again for me.
So I'm saying the announcement has been made by the government, the leader of government business. So we know of this announcement. What then, as a way forward, would be the suggestion in ensuring that you are saying decriminalize for medicinal purposes? What would be your suggestion as a next move way forward?
Well, I think it's something that warrants some amount of public discourse. We can only get consensus after consultation. And I am certainly willing, even though I will keep my position, but I'm certainly willing to abide by what majority says, because majority rules in a democracy. But in looking at it, the Minister of Foreign Affairs said that there are certain treaties, certain conventions that we have to bear in mind prior to going forward with this that will direct us in what is the best approach to take. Certainly, as I say, I want to see us reach a place where we can tap into the benefits of this plant, and I want to see us reach a place where we can allow some of our youngsters not to end up with a record so they can actually go on and be progressive in their life. Right? But I'm just saying, how we regulate that, the terms and conditions that we put in place, is something that I think is impatient of debate. And looking at regulating even the production of it to ensure that we don't allow the industry to be taken over by the so-called big man in the society. How do we regulate to say, all right, this, a farm size can't be more than this amount, right? So that the normal average person in the country, my farmers in Northwest St. Anne that are desirous of cultivating it can be allowed to cultivate an acre or up to 10 acres or whatever it is. But there are lots of regulations that we need to put in place so that it accrues to the benefit of Jamaica.
Okay, and Kenyatta, if you will, what would be your suggestion as a way forward now that the announcement has been made?
As a way forward, what I would say is that the government must try as much as possible to engage as many Jamaicans from as many walks of life and from as many factions and as point of view as possible before doing this. I've already said that for me, my ideal first step would be to go for full decriminalization. I don't think, based on how ticklish this kind of issue can be, that we will go there first right away. But what I would say is that on this issue, the government can't afford to deploy power and to use its authority in the way that Jamaican governments have normally operated. I think we need to bring as many people as possible into this decision-making process. But beyond that, beyond all of that, I think that we should use this discussion about the decriminalization of marijuana to start having a deep philosophical debate in our country about the role of the state and the role of the government. Because I think it's a discussion that we have not had as Jamaicans, right? So I would like to see us saying we are now going to sit down to determine what the parameters of state and governmental power really should be. Are there things which the government properly shouldn't be telling us what to do and how to do it? And I think the sooner we start having that philosophical discussion, the better off we will be, because it will have implications for other, shall we say, more ticklish issues in the society.
All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming in on this discussion this afternoon. I'm sure this is a topic that will not be going away anytime soon, so we look forward to having you back on this program to talk more about this issue. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have it.